Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Music and Therapy Podcast with relationship coach Keana W. Mitchell. I am your host, Keana W. Mitchell. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that we could dramatically improve on, and that is the way we connect with others. And it's pretty much just communication. But more importantly than talking about communication, we are going to be talking about self-awareness in communication. Now, all of us can communicate. We have mouths, we understand words, we know what to say. And I do believe a lot of the times, in the majority of the times, we know what to say to get our point across. So we don't need help with communication. We need help with self-awareness. But before we dive into this topic for this week, we're going to briefly talk about last week's episode of the Music and Therapy Podcast, where we talked about emotional triggers. Now, when we talk about emotional triggers, they are moments when something small creates a huge reaction inside of us. So by being aware of our emotional triggers, we can explore how these triggers, even though they aren't always obvious, can definitely trigger us in some way. Sometimes it can just be a tone of voice, a pause in a sentence, or even a question that makes us feel misunderstood, dismissed, or unsafe. Now, one powerful insight that resonated with a lot of you last week was that our triggers are often from our past experiences. This meaning that a lot of the times when we're triggered, it has nothing to do with what happened in that moment. It has to do with something in our past that makes us feel a certain way in that moment because our past issues were not resolved. So when we are aware of that, we will know how to respond. When we're unaware of that, we respond with defensiveness or anger. And we're not doing it to be mean, we're just doing it to protect ourselves. And that brings us to compassion, which is just understanding your own triggers. That's one good step. But responding to yourself with compassion is what changes the conversations. Whether it's giving someone the benefit of the doubt or gently explaining how a question affected you, it's that moment of kindness and clarity that diffuses tension and builds trust. So to find out more about recognizing emotional triggers, click the link in the show notes to listen to last week's episode of the podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about how self-awareness plays a role in having healthy communication. So remember at the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about how most of us know how to communicate. We know how to put our words together. We know how to express how we're feeling. We know how to make a point and to get that point across. So we are all pretty good at communicating what we're thinking or what we're feeling. The problem is that sometimes we are not self-aware as to how what we're saying comes across. So here's an example. I remember when a few years ago, I was talking to my daughters. They forgot to do something I needed them to do. So I was talking to them. I was like, guys, come on, you have to do this. We have to get this done. It could have been we were trying to get out for school. I don't really remember. But I know I was telling them, we need to get something done. This has to happen now. Come on, let's do this. And in my head, I was communicating to them that, guys, we need to do this quickly. We're in a rush. We have to do this now. What they heard was me yelling at them and screaming at them, telling them to come on, we need to get this done. So in this situation, the communication was there, right? I was expressing to them what they needed to do. So the communication was there. However, the way they received it was me yelling at them, me berating them, me telling them to hurry up or whatever. So they heard something different. They didn't hear the urgency like, guys, we need to get this done. They were hearing something different and it had a negative effect on them. And I was unaware that the way I was talking to them or trying to communicate with them was not something that would motivate them to do what I needed them to do, which is hurry up. Instead, it did the opposite because they got slower. They were all upset about it. Mom, why are you yelling at me? So that took more time. So you see how sometimes, even though we all know how to communicate, why it's important to be aware of how we're communicating with people. This is why sometimes at work maybe you might talk to someone or someone might talk to you and it seems like they're talking down to you, but to them they're just talking, trying to communicate or communicating a point. So what I'm saying is we know how to talk, we know how to communicate, we know how to say things we need to say. However, we need to be self-aware because communication is more than just us talking at people. It is us stating clearly what we mean and being aware of how what we're saying might come across to other people. And if we see that the way we are saying something is hurtful to some people or hurtful to people in general, then I do believe it's up to us to make a choice to change how we talk to people. And this is very important, especially when it comes to relationships, marriages, relationships with your kids, friendships. If we want to have healthy relationships with the people in our lives, healthy relationships with ourselves, healthy relationships with our spouse or boyfriend or significant other, girlfriend, significant other, whoever it may be. If we want to have healthy communication, we need to be self aware in how we're talking to people and how we're communicating. So think of self awareness as your internal GPS. It helps you to recognize where you're emotionally, mentally, and even physically so you can communicate with intention instead of reaction. Without it, our words can feel disconnected from our deeper selves, and others might feel misaligned. They might feel like they don't understand what we're trying to say. Our words and our actions are our words, and when we say things might not give the impact or have the impact that we wanted to have because we are not communicating correctly. Like we're communicating, but we're not communicating in a healthy way, and we're not communicating with intention. Instead, we're reacting to situations, and we're communicating how we feel, but it's in a way that is negatively impacting others. So it's important for us to be self-aware. Some of the things that self awareness can help you do is pause before speaking. I know sometimes for myself, and this is something I try to do, I know that I can get overwhelmed quickly. I know I react quickly. So sometimes just taking that pause, like, Keana, what are you trying to say? How do you want to say it? Or even for me, it's not even what I want to say, because I know what I want to say. It's how should I say this? So taking a pause, maybe 5 or 10 minutes for me, thinking about, okay, I know this person. What can I say for them to get my point without feeling judged or like I'm talking down to them? So just pause before speaking. Sometimes you can tune into your emotional temperature. For example, if I'm angry, frustrated, or upset, I know it's better that I not say anything because what I'm going to tell you and the way I'm going to tell you is going to be hurtful and probably harmful emotionally. So it's not even what you're saying. Because I remember when I was younger, my mom used to always say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And it's true. When it comes to having healthy communication, it's not what you say, but how you say it. So if you are saying things when you are in an emotional state, that's not going to be good. But if you're saying things when you're in a rational state, you can sometimes even say the same thing, but our tone, our intonation, how we say what we say and how we carry it across can definitely have an impact. And it can make people feel good about what you're trying to tell them and what you're communicating to them, or it can make them feel defensive, angry, or hurt with what you're communicating to them. So that's important to realize what your emotional temperature is. Another thing we can do is ask ourselves, what's really driving what I say? And this is important because sometimes what's driving what you say is because you're frustrated, or what's driving what you're saying is because you're angry about something, or because you're annoyed, or it could be that, oh, I just need something done. So it also depends on what is making you say what you say. Now, I'm not telling you not to say things because I know we do have to have hard conversations when it comes to relationships and marriages. But what I'm saying is be self aware with how your communication plays a role, with how you say things. Be self aware about why you're saying it and how you're saying it and the way you're presenting what you're saying, because you have to have these conversations and sometimes you have to be direct, but it's how you say it that makes all the difference. Just like last week when we discussed emotional triggers, knowing why something upsets you is only half the story. The other half is also noticing what to do with that information. So it's not enough to say, oh, I am feeling this way because I'm angry. Okay, that's fine, but what are we going to do with that information? So, to kind of refresh your memory on last week, we talked about recognizing emotional triggers and things like that. We also talked about responding with compassion. So when we recognize emotional triggers, we're talking about what situations or words spike a strong reaction, okay? And then responding with compassion is, instead of lashing out, take a breath, validate your emotions, and respond kindly. So when we talk about responding kindly, it's almost like this is what you do with that information that you get about what's triggering me, why am I getting angry about this. So recognizing the emotional trigger is half the battle, but also being able to know what to do with that information. Oh, I'm responding because this, that, and the other. But once you recognize that, being able to respond with compassion and control your emotions and to self soothe and not lash out can definitely help you validate your emotions and respond kindly. So, with that being said, the same thing applies to communication and self awareness. So, communicating is half the battle. Okay, so yeah, we can communicate. That's half the battle. We can tell people what's going on, what we need, what we want. Great. So, what do we do with that? We need to think about how what we say can either get us closer to where we're going or take us further back. So we have to figure out, what do we do with this information? So we know what we want to say. Now, how can we say this in a way where people are not going to be hurt by what we say? How can we say this in a way where we get our point across, but we're not tearing people down? How are we going to say this in a way where we explain how we're feeling, but not blame the other person for what we're feeling? So it's about understanding what we want to say, and then in turn being self-aware to know, okay, so how can I say this in a way that validates the other person as well while getting my feelings across? This is why self-awareness is very important. And let me tell you, self-awareness is just, it's not something you're going to learn in a day. It's not something you're going to learn in a month or a year. It is something you're going to have to actively do each and every conversation, okay? So we are going to take a minute to talk about why it's important for us to have self awareness. And not only is it important for us to have self awareness, it's important that we have self awareness and compassion, and that we do these things together. Because by doing this, we can turn conflict into connection. So, what we're going to do is talk about 4 exercises, okay? I have some exercises that we can do because this is not easy, and I recognize that. This is something you're going to need practice. It's like riding a bike, you know? When you first started to ride a bike, I'm pretty sure that you fell off a lot, right? You fell off, you hurt your knee. Some of you may have broken bones. Hopefully, that didn't happen to everyone. I didn't break any bones, but I did run into my mom's car when I was younger. I scraped my knee, scraped my elbows. Like, I took a beating just trying to learn how to ride my bike. But I did learn how to ride my bike, and it's something I was able to do. So just like we've mastered riding our bikes, driving, taking care of our kids, our responsibilities at work, just like we're able to master that, we can definitely master communication. Not just communication, but healthy communication, and having self awareness when we talk to people about our intention for that conversation. So, we have some exercises because being able to practice these things will make it easier for us to actually do them. And practicing before we even have to worry about conversations is a way that we can begin the first steps, baby steps, to being self aware. So, the first test is what I call the mirror test, okay? The mirror test is you just stand in front of a mirror, say something out loud that you recently said in a tough conversation. And then after you say something out loud that you recently said in a tough conversation, you ask yourself, would I want to be on the receiving end of this sentence? And the reason I say look in the mirror, you don't technically have to do it, but I say look in the mirror because sometimes when we talk, our facial expression might be angry, and you might not even be aware that when you're talking, you look angry, or that when you're talking, you look annoyed. So just being aware of your body language while you're saying things is important. So with the mirror test, you don't have to stand in the mirror, but I say do it to be aware of your facial expressions and your body language. And then I want you to think about something that you said recently to someone that you love. In this case, let's say your spouse or significant other. Think about something that you recently said to them when you were having a disagreement, an argument, or a tough conversation, okay? I want you to say that out loud. And then I need you to ask yourself, would I want to be on the receiving end of that sentence? And if the answer is no, then I need you to come up with a different way, a kinder way, a compassionate way to say what you just said, where the other person will not feel destroyed and they'll feel like you're just having a conversation, okay? Or you're just explaining how you feel. Because the whole point of conversations and talking and communication is not to make the other person you're talking to feel like crap or tear them down. It's to get a point across. It's to say how you're feeling. And we should not say how we're feeling in a way that tears someone else down or destroy them. So this is something that we can do. We can do the mirror test and we can ask ourselves, would I like it if someone says that to me? If the answer is no, and if you know you would have a strong reaction, negative reaction, if someone says that to you, then we need to reframe what we say and how we say it, okay? The message can still be the same, but we can definitely do our best to work on changing the harshness and the tone of what we're saying, okay? The second exercise that I want you that we can do to build self-awareness, and I really would love for you guys to do this, is an emotional journal. And journaling is amazing, okay? When you journal, you have that quiet time. You have a chance to think about what you want to say, what you want to write, what you want to do. And that's why journaling is important. Now, this is called an emotional journal, okay? This is another exercise where you just journal. And for 1 week, it would just require you to write down the conversations where you felt misunderstood. And in your journaling is a I would like for you to write down what you said, how you felt, and what you wish you said instead. So this is fun because in a way you kind of get to go back and redo it, right? We all know that once you say words, you can't take them back. But in this exercise, you can definitely not take the words back, but you can change what you would say instead. So for 1 week, and it could be once a day, twice a day, whenever. I want you to write down conversations where you felt misunderstood. Then I want you to think about, ooh, what did I say in this conversation? Write down what you said, how you felt, and then after some reflection, what you wish you said instead. This is key because when we can sit down and think about the conversation, why we felt misunderstood, then be like, okay, I felt misunderstood, so I said this, and then how you felt after you said it, and then what you wish you said instead, because that will give your brain time to reflect and be like, okay, so next time I should have said this instead, or it might have been better for me to say this instead. I hate to say should, so we're gonna say it might be a way for you to see what you could have said differently. And by seeing what we're saying differently and writing it down, and our mind is thinking about these situations, you are kind of reprogramming yourself to say things differently. So the more we think about, oh, what could I have said differently? How could I have done this differently? We are becoming self aware of who we are, why we're feeling that way, why we had this conversation, why we felt misunderstood in this conversation, and we're able to take that information and process it and understand, okay, this is what I said, this is how I felt. What can I do differently next time? What could I have said instead? And by doing this, we are training ourselves to respond differently in these types of situations and conversations. Our third exercise for building self awareness is called pause and label. So I love this one because this can actually help you in the moment when you are having a conversation and your conversation might be going negative real quickly and you have a chance to save it. It doesn't always have to end in disaster. If you see your conversation is not going well and things are going downhill, you have a chance to change it. And here's how you can change it. You pause and label. So what you would do is whenever you feel like this conversation is getting heated and you are being triggered in a conversation or you're just mad or angry, what you would do in this moment is to pause, name the emotion that you're feeling silently to yourself. You're like, man, I'm really frustrated with him. I'm really frustrated with her. Then I need you to take a moment and come up with a better way to handle the situation. You can even take your time out, give yourself a time out, and be like, hey, right now I'm feeling really frustrated. Can we talk about this in 10 minutes? so I can have a chance to regroup. Something like that. And I say do this because labeling helps you separate the reaction. So many times we get so caught up in conversations, trying to get our point across, trying to express ourselves, trying to make the other person hear what we're saying, until we can get frustrated, we can get angry, we can get annoyed because we're just like, they're not listening, they're not hearing. But when you're able to say, you know what, I'm feeling frustrated because I feel as if they're not getting what I'm trying to say. So by labeling it, it can help you separate your emotions from your reaction, because it's different if you feel like, oh, well, maybe they just don't understand what I'm saying, or maybe they don't get what I'm trying to communicate. Then you can change what you're trying to, how you try to say it. But most importantly, just being aware of how you're feeling helps you to validate your emotions, see why you're feeling that way, but then not react in conversation with your spouse or partner in a way that is emotionally charged. So that is good as well. Exercise number 4 would be playback method. So this can be kind of fun. You can record a mock conversation with yourself or a trusted friend. So think of a conversation that you and your spouse may have had recently. If it's something you would like, you feel that it's not too personal, and you can record with a trusted friend, do that. But if it's something really personal, you don't want to share with a friend about something you and your spouse or partner may have had a heated conversation about, it might be good if you just recorded the conversation by yourself. Recorded what you said, then, say what they may have said and record it. After you record it, I need you to play it back and listen to your tone, the pace, and your choice of words. This can be very helpful in helping you see how people may perceive how you speak to them, how your tone may have affected the conversation in either a negative or positive way. And you might find that maybe your communication, you're self-aware, and some things you say may have worked, some things you say may not have worked. So in this situation, you can observe the things that worked and then change the things that didn't work. And this can be very helpful. I find that playing things back in general is a good way to correct things. Now, I like to sing, and one of the things I do when singing or practicing is record myself, and then I listen to it. And if I'm hitting notes that I don't like, I know where to change it, how to change it, where it needs to be. If I try something in the song and it's not working, I can always go back and change it. And it makes your practice time more effective. And the same thing goes with our conversation with our partner or our spouse. Being able to be self-aware and be able to know, oh, you know what, I said this, that didn't sound right. I probably could have used a different choice set of words. Or, whoa, my tone was really harsh. I won't want anyone to speak to me. Or, wow, I'm talking really fast. Maybe that's why they didn't understand what I'm saying. Or just being able to observe these things, your tone, your pace, and your choice of words. And then when you see, oh, that was harsh. Ooh, that didn't sound right. I could have used better words for that. Then you can mentally change them. And then when you're in this situation again and you're having a conversation, then you know, okay, so I'm not going to use these set of words. I'm going to try this instead. So that's why playback method can be very effective with helping you see what worked in a conversation and what didn't work. And remember, the whole point of all of this is because we don't want to just have conversations. We want healthy conversations, conversations that nurtures your relationships, not conversations that destroy them. So that is why we're working on being self-aware, because when you're self-aware, you'll know, hey, I have the tendency to sometimes be rude. I have the tendency to sometimes hurt people when I speak. I have the tendency to put people down or make them feel stupid when I'm angry with them. When you recognize your and you're self-aware about your communication style, how you talk to people, how you can make people feel when you speak, then you can take that information and then change your behavior and work on validating, making people feel safe in having a conversation with you, even if you don't agree, but letting them know I am a safe space where we can have this conversation. You don't have to agree, but you can definitely validate. Validating is not about agreeing with someone. It's about acknowledging their feelings and going from there and putting yourself in their shoes and seeing where they may be coming from. So that is important. So we can definitely do that. And this can be very helpful. Now, another exercise you can do called value check-in. This is when you ask, what value am I protecting when I speak strongly? Because sometimes we need to know why we're doing this. And once you understand your core value, then you'll be able to connect your words with purpose. So if you are speaking strongly against something because this is what you really feel or what you really value, just understanding this can help you pick your words so that you can still express how you feel, your values. You can still go off of that, but you can also not force them or anyone or put anyone down because they don't agree with your values. So all of these things come with being self-aware. I mean, sometimes all of us can come across as being pushy, but that's not our intention. So just being aware of our tone, our body language, ways, the words we say, all of this can go a long way with having healthy communication. So that's why self-awareness is key to having that healthy communication that we crave. Because wouldn't it be nice if we could talk to our spouse or our partners, our kids, family, friends, in a way where we can be authentic and be who we are and know that we have developed and created a safe space for communication? That would be amazing. And this is where we want to get and need to get to when it comes to our relationships and with our marriages and with our partners, okay? So that's why we're doing this. All right, now finally, guys, we are going to talk about homework. Yes, I know I have homework for you. I'm going to try to give homework out weekly so that not only do we listen to the podcast, but we can definitely take something from the podcast episode to help us in our day-to-day lives and experiences and interactions with our partners or our spouses, okay? So, your homework for this week is called the Intentional Conversation Challenge. Here's how it works. Choose 3 conversations this week. One with your spouse or partner, one with a friend, and one with a family member, okay? Before speaking, I need you to pause for 10 seconds and ask yourself, what am I feeling? What do I hope to communicate? What is the outcome I desire? After each conversation, jot down what went well, what felt tough, and what you learned about yourself. If you do this all week, by the end of the week, you'll notice subtle changes, not just in how people respond to you, but in how you feel after speaking your truth with awareness. So that's what it's about, being able to speak your truth with self-awareness and compassion, okay? I want to close today's episode with a song that captures the spirit of reflection and honest connection. Now, the song we're going to listen to is a song called Revenge by Keana W. That's me, of course. And it's a song about what happens when we let our emotions get the best of us and when we are not self-aware about what we are doing.
She walked to his car window with something in her hand. She didn't know what she was doing, but she saw a woman with a man. They were holding hands and making plans. He was whispering something in her ear. She knew that she still loved him, and what was happening wasn't fair. She threw the brick, the glass shattered, just like her broken heart. The consequences didn't matter. She felt better when she got revenge. Don't say that she was crazy or that she acted insane. You never know what you would do if the same thing happened to you. 'Cause they were holding hands and making plans. He was whispering something in her ear. She knew that she still loved him, and what was happening wasn't fair. She threw the brick, the glass shattered, just like her broken heart. The consequences didn't matter. She felt better when she got revenge. Revenge is not always the best thing. Revenge is not always the best thing. Revenge is not always the best thing. Revenge is not always the best consequences didn't matter. She felt better when she got revenge. She threw the brick, the glass shattered, just like her broken heart. The consequences didn't matter. She felt better when she got revenge.
Before I end the episode, I would like to say thank you so much, guys, for tuning in to the Music and Therapy Podcast with relationship coach Keana W. Mitchell. I truly appreciate you listening to the podcast and for being here each and every week. So thank you so much for being here. In order for us to continue this conversation about having a balance of healthy communication and being self aware of what we're doing, I would definitely encourage you to do the practices that we talked about, and along with the homework assignment. That is going to be very important to help you on this journey of developing healthy communication with your spouse and being aware of how what you say, your tone, body language, all express something different than what you may be trying to say. And I do want to encourage you, if you have any breakthroughs, any questions, I definitely love to hear from you. So please reach out on social media or through email. I should have all that information in the show notes. So if you just look on the show notes and click on the link in the show notes, you should be able to reach out to me on social media or through email. All right, well, guys, thank you again. And I can't wait to see you next week, where we will be talking about how to have emotional safety and make that the foundation of our intimacy with our partners or with our spouse. All right, talk to you guys next week, and enjoy your week and have an amazing weekend. Bye bye.